So I'm delighted to be hosting today's webinar with Jeremie Rombolt, founder and CEO of Cultivate, Aurélien Pedrocchi, who is account executive at Showpad, who many of you will recognise, Damjan managing director of POPcomms, and we're delighted to be joined as well by Cheung, who is lead channel marketing manager at Wienerberger, one of POP's and Showpad's clients. So we'll be starting in a moment, as we've got quite a packed schedule to cover. The past 12 months has seen businesses look to innovate and adopt technology to support their teams. Our panel are here to guide you through the digital transformation process with construction front of mind. Firstly, we'll be hearing from Jeremie Rombolt, founder of Cultivate, which helps established companies build new digitally enabled business models by unleashing their creative potential and creating a startup mindset. He's worked with a number of construction companies to digitally transform their businesses and will be setting the scene. Over to you, Jeremie.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this great seminar of the first series in 2021. So we are really great honor for us to see so many interesting businesses that have joined us today. And we are really delighted to engage in this exchange with you. Just to set the stage, when we are talking about transformation, I think it's right to say that the old man was right, at least on this one for sure, that it's not about the strongest, it's not about the most intelligent, but it's about the most adaptable to change of species that will make it and will be the ones living through in the new world. When we apply that to the business in which we are, we may say, why are we on a webinar like this today? And if we look at some indicators, for example, the S&P 500, today the average age of a company there is 18 years versus 60 years when it was back in 1960s. If we look at the Fortune 500 list of companies, only 12% of those that were there on the list in 1950s still exist today. So it is indeed right to say that for any business, future-proofing is essential. Now, when we look at that from the construction industry point of view, we may also say, why not? When we think about it, in average on construction, we know that around 30% of value is wasted to different kinds of inefficiencies on any given kind of project and various kinds of markets. So if we look at that, it is 1.6 trillion US dollars, which is annually in a way wasted. There is around 256 billion annual profit pool that is today awaiting for disruptors coming into the industry and probably changing the existing models. So why wait for disruptors if we could have companies and businesses that are doing great and established today here that could even venture into that space and up to some point even double their profits? Not something that we would regret, especially in the industry where margins are relatively normally slow and thin. So the choice is really ours. Do we want to be a Kodak or do we want to become a Lego in terms of how we reinvent ourselves with time? Now, looking at that, one thing is for sure is that the construction industry is changing. That there is no doubt about it. And we can broadly say there are two forces bringing about this change. One could be an external force and the other one an internal force. The external force is sustainability. It is definitely, absolutely something we can believe that this is not a topic of the next century. It's about something of tomorrow. If we look at it, we are in an industry that is responsible for around 1/3 of the global carbon emissions annually. And we have now a lot of companies aligning on very specific targets like the net zero for 2050. Even the UK government has a very clear target that it has taken for itself of reducing by 50% the emission impacts on 2025 level versus 1990. So it's all about how do we, on one side, increase social impact and on the other, decrease the environmental impact. Then if we look at the other force, which is an internal driven force, it's the industrialization of this industry. So if we talk about what we said before, which is a lot of waste and inefficiencies, the way to address that is through the industrialization of the industry, which is happening. For example, if we take the CAGR for offsite in the UK, it has been 30% in the last 5 years. So we can, from that, say it's the fastest growing industrial sector in the UK at the moment. And so on. If we say in general, this force, it's about modern methods of construction, and to go along with that, digital sites and digital supply chains that will get transformed from the existing model. Having said that, if we look at it in a very practical way, just a small recent study by the Heriot-Watt University, you can see that this is real. Just one building done in a more efficient way resulted in 40% less emissions. So just one building could be the equivalent of 26,000 tons of CO2 reduced, or maybe we can call it the other way, 3,500 homes that are powered for an entire 12 months. And this, again, I would like to repeat, is not for the next century, it's for tomorrow. You can see the quote from the Secretary of State on saying that this is in the next 5 years that we want to achieve it. Then industrialization, as we may call it, is much more than just cost. It is a lot of other benefits that you probably already know. Speed, efficiency, productivity, reduced waste, etc., etc. But taking a step back, it's also about a lot of value. If we look at it, it's across the entire supply chain, whether you are a builder, whether you are a building material manufacturer, whether you are a developer, promoter, a design engineering company, everyone will see an impact of value being shifted from what is in their space today towards offsite. So we estimate around 45% of the current value getting shifted into a new set of actors that will be emerging in this transformation. And all the factors that are leading that change are again listed here, the major ones. And if we did the survey with more than 180, so McKinsey survey on 180 professionals across the world, most of them felt that it is going to show signs within the next 5 years once again. So having said that, there are still some of us who might say, but is that really happening? It's nice to see surveys, but is that really happening? So I just want to show you two very quick glimpses of that. For example, if we take an example of Zurich and a timber frame house, it's something which is close to our home and close to our markets. You can see that this is how a timber frame house tomorrow on site could look like. So from the video that is running on that screen, you can see the whole frame being mounted by robots, actually. And maybe we are also speaking about shortages of houses and the deficit that we are not able to bridge currently, and also a reduction in skills available in the industry. So that's just one example from on-site. If you take the other example, which is from off-site, today we still say off-site is more expensive than on-site in many cases. The reason being that many factories are more fabricators than industrialists, and therefore you can say that, you know, there are some brick companies in this call as well, but look at the way today a slip is placed in those factories, and for example the way it's placed here, completely robotized and automated. So that all is not science fiction, it's things which are really happening. Now, of course, we may say one step further, is that really happening here? That's good, that's in Zurich or that's in Sweden, but is that happening in the UK? So I just wanted to give you a small pick from the UK of what happened last year, despite the situation of the COVID that we all went through. So, for example, Blueprints getting a funding round for e-commerce, WhatsApp-based payments. We all heard about the deal of Urban Splash with the biggest home builder in the world, the South Koreans. Or we have the IKEA-backed developers signing with Top Hat for modular homes, or somebody we have on this call. We are delighted that you are with us today, Yardlink, which is another great example of new business models, which has raised a very nice funding round in this year. And then overall, in 2020, $1.3 billion has gone into funding startups that are coming here to disrupt the industry. And this was a 56% year-on-year increase versus 2019. So the trend is definitely not being stopped. So now at the end, to arrive a little bit at some conclusions, having said all this, many of you might be thinking, so how can I do it? Where do I start? I'm in an established, I'm running a business. So 3 little tips for that. First one, identify your current state. A lot of times we look at performance in the past, we look at value creation in the past, which is what we announced to the markets, but then how much are we doing on the future, whether it is in innovation or in operations or in value creation in that regard. So it is about how do we address the future, not looking at markets with a 2-dimensional view, which is customers and suppliers, if you want, with performance in between, but almost having a 5-dimensional view, which adds trends like sustainability, technology like digital, and eventually also the disruptors, which are new type of competitors that you don't see today on your screen. The second one is, how do you get there? One is to focus on your core business there in the center, but then there are multiple ways of actually getting there, be it through expansion, which is what companies generally do, defining performance, maybe further enhanced through digital tools, customer journeys, covering customer journeys, we'll cover that a bit later in this webinar, integration, partnerships, etc., which are various models through which you can achieve that growth. And as an example of digital, you can see that it could be externally focused or internally focused. If we go externally focused, this could be your delight the customer zone. If you go here, it could be optimize your operations zone or flex your platform. Anything in between could be creating new business models. And if we just take an example from the car industry, which has already been in this for a while now, the slide is quite populated, and I'm sure that within 5 years, the industry of construction will be as populated in this space. And the third and the last tip that I would like to give you is it all comes down to implementation. We have seen that on several projects. So implementation will happen on your front line, and empowering and enabling the front line with the right tools, with the right information is absolutely key for getting all that going. So this is also where my colleagues will be taking you a little bit further into this webinar. So wrapping up, finally, I also have to acknowledge that probably a lot of what I have said here are not things that were unheard of to you in this information or digital age we have been living in. However, the challenge is less about understanding that the future will be different, but the real challenge is more about understanding what is the destination for us and our business into that future, and what is the way in which, or the path, that's why we have a program called Pathfinder, through which you want to actually reach that destination. So I would like to once again say a very big thank you for this great panels of companies that are here. You have joined us today. There are many very interesting businesses that I have seen, and I would be very keen to know more offline or through your questions in the chat about how you are making your journey into the future. Just playing a bit, I was thinking maybe RMD quick form might be thinking about how augmented reality could support construction workers assembling formworks on different sites in the most efficient and correct way. Or Cubis might be thinking about how fleet management partnerships could be done with Yardlink, for example, also on this call, or Benex looking at covering their customer journey, or finally maybe Kingswood Homes about thinking about how to prepare for trends like co-living or build to rent that might redefine the ownership model in the future. So once again, thank you very much, and looking forward to connect with you on how to explore ideas about resetting your business or setting off into the future. And with this, I would like to hand over to my colleagues who will be next on some great tools and immersion that you will see can certainly boost your front lines and the frontline teams into your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy, for that. There's a lot to get people thinking, I think. We've had a couple of questions come in. So before I move on to Aurélien, one of the questions is, who in the organisation would initiate a transformation like this? Would it simply be at CEO level?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I strongly believe in a bottom-up approach, and I strongly believe there is much more information available on the front line than probably sometimes there is on the top. So I don't think it's only at the CEO level. There is a leadership mandate required, but definitely a changing champion can be anywhere in the organization if we can support and give the right tools, and then engage, of course, the leadership team on that. So across the organization is the answer.
That's great, and thank you for that question. If anyone has any more questions, if you just put it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Now on to Aurélien from Showpad, who many of you are familiar with. Showpad is a powerful tool which helps thousands of businesses across the globe to centralize their sales, marketing, onboarding and training content in an intuitive platform. Aurélien works alongside construction companies to enable them to get the most out of Showpad in order to grow and strengthen their business. He's here to share his knowledge with you today. So over to you, Aurélien.
Thank you, Leander. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Jeremie, for the great introduction. So like Jeremie said, the leadership team will basically align on the objectives and the challenges of their companies and decide what has to be implemented to improve those. Now we can see easily that top-down strategies can see multiple roadblocks. And this is why it is important to take into consideration every level of your organization in this transformation. So here, I would like to talk with you about how your frontline teams, why you should empower them and why you should enable them. So when I talk about frontline teams, it would be any team that has a touch point with your customers. So you should enable them because they are showcasing your company, your products, and your values on a daily basis. So you want them to be seen as trusted advisors, and this by delivering the best customer experience. So here I would like to put a little bit of perspective and numbers to back this statement. Gartner in 2018 saw that 90% of B2B companies expected customer experience to be the next battleground. Well, these 90% are even more true at the moment, considering the impact that COVID had on the buyer and the customer journeys, adding a lot of digital components to it. But at the same time, 77% of B2B buyers feel that making a purchase is too complicated and too time consuming. So to relate to your industry, why is that? Because your teams are talking to a very different set of personas and about different topics constantly. However, they're not necessarily equipped to talk to those people. So there's sometimes, it comes sometimes from a lack of content or specific information. For example, an example I use a lot is when you talk to an architect, you would potentially need more inspiring and visual content. Whereas for an engineer, you would be more focused on the specs of your product. And even though you might have that content, your teams don't know where it is. So the question is, how do we change that? So, but more importantly, where do we start and how do we make the life of those teams easier? Well, the answer is sales enablement, or you will see now we talk about revenue enablement. And I always use this definition from SiriusDecision, which basically says that the goal of sales enablement is to ensure that every seller has all the knowledge, the skills, the process, and the behavior to optimize each stage of the sales cycle and every interaction they have with their buyers. So I appreciate this is very theoretical. So how does that actually materialize itself in real life? Well, it materializes itself as a technology platform, accessible online and offline on all devices. And that will act as a single source of truth for your marketing and your sales teams in order to improve every interaction and optimize this interaction, whoever this interaction is with. And in essence, it makes the life of your sales teams easier. You can see on this slide screenshots of Showpad, along with an example on the right side, the little video, which basically focuses on the construction industry, where the seller has the ability through something called the atom in Showpad to find a specific piece of content based on a specific criteria, here the persona, in a most engaging and interactive way. So again, this is great, but what does that actually mean for you, for your company, and for your teams and for everyone? Well, the bottom line is ROI. So whether it's marketing, like savings on marketing budget, because you know exactly what content works and what content doesn't work, and you will replicate it. And on the opposite side, as I said, if it doesn't work, you will stop spending money on it. Another big one is the time saved by your sales teams by automating administration tasks, with the result of bringing more business and faster. And on this slide, there's an important data. And for me, it's the top left corner, especially with your industry where the teams spend a lot of time on the field. By saving administration time, they will actually be able to meet with more customers. And by combination, spending more time with customers, presenting what customers need in a more consistent way, they will improve engagement and they will improve trust. And they won't be seen as sellers anymore, but as trusted advisors instead. And to go back to Jeremie's point, this is the Lego strategy. By embracing digitalization and focusing on your customers and the solutions you have for them. So we discussed why future-proofing your business is key at the moment with Jeremie, and why leadership and frontline teams together are instrumental to that success. But now let's see, I'm going to leave it to Damjan to show how you can take that strategy to the next level for an even more engaging experience. But before that, if you have, I don't know if we have any questions in the chat.
Yes, we've got one question that came through, just asking about how long it takes to implement a platform like Showpad. Aurélien.
So that's a good question. So we work with different size of companies, and Showpad, as I said, is a sales enablement platform. So you can either decide to have the central place for content, but we also have a training and coaching module, and we also have meeting intelligence, which records meeting and transcribes everything. So depending on what you will decide to go for, obviously the length of that project will be like shorter or longer. However, to give you an approximate, we see an average of 6 to 9 weeks from the kickoff of the project to the go live of the solution. So it's fairly light, and it usually doesn't involve too many people on a full-time basis.
That's fantastic. Well, I hope that answered the question fully. If anybody has anything else to add or ask later, if you could pop that in the Q&A chat. So over to Damjan now. Damjan is MD of POP, a sales-focused creative technology business based in Bristol. We work with clients in the sector globally to create digital sales experiences. So over to you, Damjan.
Morning, everybody. Thanks, Jeremie. So at POP, yeah, I mean, we'd like to talk about really working on the front line with your teams and helping them when they're going out, meeting customers, whether that's in person or remote, to have those sort of really great conversations. So I think, you know, as Jeremie outlined, you know, you need to have the overarching strategy, and you also need sort of the practical processes, platforms and people in place, as Aurélien has outlined. But ultimately, you know, you need to equip your teams with the tools and the digital experiences so they can actually go out and do business. And this is really exactly what we help our customers do. And it's about making it really easy for your customers to quickly understand exactly what it is that you do for them, the value that you can deliver and the opportunities that you can create. And this needs to be the case, you know, no matter how diverse your customer base in terms of roles, sectors, knowledge or experience. And that's really exactly what we help our customers do. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly run through an experience that we developed for GCP, and they're a manufacturer of sort of advanced construction materials, which some people might be aware of. And I think from our point of view, you know, one of the most important things about developing an experience is personalization. It's about framing your proposition from the buyer's perspective, your customer's perspective, and creating an environment that they instantly recognize, that they're familiar with, and that resonates. And this is really important on so many levels because it demonstrates that you understand them and their business and their industry. And it also makes it very easy for them to understand exactly what it is that you do, how you fit into their business, and how you can help and enable them to do what they need to do. So this is a visual that we created for GCP, which talks directly to their customers. And within the system themselves, they can actually click into zones, and they can speak about areas of this environment that would relate to their different customers. This particular experience is sort of to do with damp and waterproofing systems. And then the other sort of really important thing, and both Aurélien and Jeremie sort of mentioned this, is moving away from being product focused and really positioning yourself as a thought leader, taking a very sort of consultative approach, asking questions, probing the customer, do they understand exactly what it is that they're trying to do? And this really helps to open the buyer up. It gets them to see ideas, see where maybe you're saying, well, are you having these sorts of challenges, and helps them to really tell you exactly where their issue lies. And by using a little bit of interactivity and creativity, you can start to drill down into areas that are of most relevance to them. And that's really important to have that flexibility. It's not a one size fits all. It's about talking directly to the customer, to their challenges. And alongside that, it's also about making the story very simple, very intuitive, having a logical narrative flow, so it keeps the customer focused, it keeps you on brand, it keeps you on message. So you can see just by using very sort of clear visuals, again, by using interactivity, a customer might be interested in sort of the sort of the physical barrier side. They can then click into that for more detail. And it's also about, not telling the customer, it's actually showing, using visuals, thinking creatively, how can I sort of bring this story to life? How can I make it very clear to them exactly, how our systems work, how they integrate? So, very simple models like this just really help to tell that story. And it's about anchoring these ideas in a customer's mind. And then, we also talk a lot about, making it very easy to access information straight away. And sort of an important side of that is, striking whilst the iron's hot. If you're talking about a particular sort of product or solution, rather than saying, well, we'll wait till later and then I'll email you, is actually sort of tagging content within an experience and then emailing it directly there to the customer, sharing valuable information so they've got it in their hand, they can act on it straight away. And Showpad and platforms like that are excellent platforms for helping you do that. And that's really key with customers. You want to make it as easy for them as possible. And functions like that are really very important to integrate. And you can see here that you've got those sort of flexibility of navigation. So I think that's just a very sort of quick dip into a project that we ran for GCP, but maybe just helpful just to sort of paraphrase this and what really makes for a great buyer experience. And I think there's sort of three areas. So firstly, it's for your customers. So as we said, it's about personalization. It's creating an experience that talks directly to them. They're at the center of the story. It's all about them. Simplicity. Now, this isn't about dumbing down. This is about really focusing in on what is important to them. Simplify the story, make it very easy for them to understand, take it away, talk to other stakeholders, really understand your proposition, and value at every stage. It's moving away from talking about products, positioning yourselves as a strategic partner, and really helping them to understand why it's so critical that you work with them. And this really helps to develop trust. And at the end of the day, trust is crucially important with buyers and turning them into customers. And then secondly, your sales team. We always say that we have two customers. and that's our customer's customer, and then your sales team. They're the people that are out on the road talking to your customers. They're the ones driving the business. So you need to provide them with a tool that's flexible, allows them to talk to different customers, no matter their knowledge or experience levels, what sector they're in. They've got all the tools at their fingertips to have that conversation. Clear narrative, again, help them to be able to walk through a very clear, powerful story. Give them that tool. Easy access. As Aurélien said, with these platforms, they can access any information the customer wants instantly. And it's crucial that that is easy, works first time, every time. And that obviously applies to the customer as well. Anything they want to know, you've got to be able to access it. And this builds confidence. It builds confidence in your sales team. It builds confidence amongst the customer. And that's really, really important, that they feel they have everything they need to do their job. And then finally, for you as a business, data and analytics, crucial. You need to understand what's working, what's not working, so you can fine tune your message constantly. The world is changing rapidly. You need to know how it's changing, what people are thinking. And then, as Aurélien mentioned, the single source of truth, having a tool with central control, where there is only one version. People aren't going out making their own versions. They have absolutely the latest information. And that flows into sort of consistency and control as well. So you can control the message, you can control the story, you have a single voice, no matter who is telling that. And that should really give you peace of mind that, one, the customers are getting what they need. Two, the sales teams have the tools that they need to do their job, and that you have the information and control that you need. And I'll just leave you with this sort of final thought from Brent Adamson from Gartner, and I think this is really telling about where we are now and the future of business. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Damjan. We've had a question pop in asking whether the solution integrates within Showpad and how that would happen, or does it sit outside of the framework?
No, these are experiences are very much integrated into Showpad. So it's a very fluid, seamless integration, accessing all the functionality that Showpad has to offer. This is sort of a window that sits on top that creates that very immersive visual experience, and then ties into all the power that Showpad provides in the back end to the business and to the sales rep.
Fantastic, thank you. So now over to Dan, who will be rounding up. We're delighted to have him here from Wienerberger, the UK's leading provider of wall, roof and landscaping innovations. Dan, if you'd like to now share your journey of transformation with us.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a good morning. So when I was asked to take part today, I just wanted to use my few minutes to share some of my experiences and our journey with revenue enablement so far. And I call it a journey because, I mean, who would have said kind of 12 months ago that we'd all be probably sitting in our homes, in our home offices, bedrooms, wherever that may be, with kids running around. And I think that's fundamentally, changed the way that a lot of us do business and a lot of us have been working. And, this plays into the conversation of today, really, where, we're all looking for these tools that just help us reach our customers easier. So let me just move on to the next slide. So just to put kind of my journey into a bit of context, Leander mentioned obviously my background, but for those of you who don't know Wienerberger, we're the largest producer of bricks in the world. And for the last 10 years or so, we've really been focused on digitalisation and looking to the future of construction. And in terms of, my background, I've been working in the sector for over nearly 15 years. That's in heavy side products, light side merchants, and also creative agencies. So a quite broad spectrum. And then probably over the last 5-6 years, I've led revenue enablement projects in a couple of different companies, and my relationship with Showpad goes back quite a way. So revenue enablement is relatively new concept to many businesses, and particularly in industries like construction, and it can be a long road. So there were just kind of 4 steps that I wanted to recommend considering when starting along that journey. So first of all, we've got the right team. Goes without saying really, but you really need people that are passionate about reaching the same end goal that you are, and helping you manage change within your various stakeholders. It's just going to be critical that you have the right team behind you. Planning your journey, how you want to get there is super important, and it has an impact on a range of different things, such as the items and tools that you end up selecting to partner with, but also the assets you develop, you know, whether it's videos or immersive experiences. You know, it has a big impact. So you really need to plan that journey up front to make sure that you're, you know, maximizing your return on investment and also your time really. And then experience guides. You know, I mentioned partners. You know, I just love working with people that make it enjoyable, make it easy for me. You know, I want to have the best possible experience with the partners that I choose to work with. And also partners that bring real expertise and ongoing support. You know, I've worked in the past with, you know, different agencies and things that, you know, once the job's done, it's kind of, you know, the support kind of dwindles away, and that hasn't been the case in a lot of the revenue projects I've worked with. And then finally, sales and marketing traveling together. I think it's been mentioned in the previous presentation, but it's really critical, and you know, revenue enablement won't succeed without that alignment and collaboration with the sales team. So how far along on the journey at Wienerberger at the moment? So we launched Showpad to our teams in March, probably not the greatest of timing, but we didn't know around the corner that literally like a week later everyone would be working from home. And at that point, you know, we thought, oh, you know, they'll be back in a few weeks, but you know, we're still sitting here today. So we launched Showpad back in March. However, since a lot of the teams have returned and towards the back end of the year and certainly into this year, we've seen really strong usage of our revenue enablement platform. And that's continued, as I say, throughout January. And so we've had over 250% growth in internal viewing of our marketing assets, and over 300% increase in customer views and customer sharing of those assets. So what you can see in that chart there, the trend has continued, which is really great, that the customer views of our content is outstripping our internal views. So that's really great, and it shows that our customers are engaged in the things that we're sending them. And more importantly, it's just been super critical for our teams during the last 9 months. It's allowed for smoother communication with customers and stakeholders, especially whilst working from home. You know, remote selling, it's just helped massively with that. And it's also improved collaboration between ourselves and sales to ensure that we're really meeting the needs of our customers and delivering focused solutions. An example of that would be, for example, in the architectural space, where, you know, what our team can do today is literally create a branded experience for their customers within about 5-10 minutes, and then collaborate with them on projects online in real time with assets that are pre-approved, presentations, videos, etc. And literally, you know, from having a call with a customer to setting that up, it can take our guys 5 minutes to do that, and it really adds a level of quality to what we're presenting to our customers. And then finally, just to wrap up, I just wanted to leave some final thoughts, again, kind of just my thinking on some quick tips for ensuring revenue enablement success. So agile development, choose a solution that can change and adapt quickly with shifting needs. You're definitely going to need that. You're going to need something that can change with your business and change with the strategic nature of what your business is going to be looking to achieve over the next X number of years. Know your targets, and that's targets both internally and externally. Depending on who you're going to want to utilize the tools, it will depend how you structure them, and also your customers. What are they going to be most comfortable using? Get creative. Those of you that are in the field of marketing, it's something that I think we all love to do. And sales enablement allows you to get creative with new buyer experiences, new ways of doing things, but also it allows you to better invest your budget, which again allows you to be a bit more creative and do things that you wouldn't maybe necessarily have done before and sticking to the norm. So, definitely get creative with it. Analyze, as was mentioned by Aurélien, these tools give you the ability to really drive sales, marketing improvements, and it's all based on customer data. We know what gets opened most, what gets viewed most. We know, viewing time. We know items that are shared internally with different groups of people. We really know what assets are really engaging with our customer base. So that's super helpful. It's not magic. Be realistic with your goals and stick with it. Take small steps. With these kind of tools, it's going to be, it can be kind of slow to get people to get used to it, particularly those that have older ways of doing things, those that are kind of used to going in and having those face-to-face meetings, which you don't lose from using these tools, but it's definitely a shift away from maybe the traditional way of maybe working. So, be realistic, take those baby steps and just persevere with it. And then finally, promote. You do need to promote the platforms and the tools that you use internally. Get teams to share best practice, keep up to date with all the changing features and things that happen, and share success stories. That's probably the most powerful thing to getting people bought in, is that those really high performing salespeople you'll tend to find are the high users of these types of solutions. So that those success stories that are shared throughout the team are really essential to success. So yeah, promote is a big one. So that's it from me. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a great day. If you have any questions for me or the rest of the panel, I'll hand back to Leander.
Great, thanks ever so much for that, Dan. I did have one question that came in, which was about, you mentioned that it's critical to get the right team on board within the organisation. How did you create that enthusiasm within Wienerberger?
So it's really bringing them in right up the front when you're looking at the different solutions, but also showing them and putting in the projects that you're working on into terms that will really benefit them. For example, with sales teams, there's going to be pain points that they have, and you're going to be able to find solutions that will directly help with some of those major pain points. And once they see that is your focus, and not just from the marketing side of controlling the way they view assets, for example, but it's really focused on helping them and their sales, then that's really critical to getting their buy-in.
That's great, thank you. And I suppose this question kind of carries on from there, but if you don't have a sales enablement function within your business, I don't know if Aurélien, this might be one for you to answer. Yes. Who would normally own that role?
So this is a situation we actually see a lot in the construction industry, and it's usually owned by sales and marketing. So why do I say sales and marketing? It's just because you can't really have it owned entirely by sales or entirely by marketing, because if you do this, you will create like distortion and there will be a lack of communication between the teams. So both teams needs to work together. And once we start having conversation with whoever it is, if we start talking to marketing, we ask to involve sales, and the reason why we should involve sales, because otherwise it's going to be marketing bringing another platform, and adoption, it would be hard to like drive adoption. And if it's sales, marketing will see it as a blocker, as in why are we involved in this, whereas we're talking about sales and marketing collaterals and content. So it's really like it's really with these both teams that we mainly work in the industry.
Okay, Damjan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that from
Yeah,
your experience.
I was just really going to back that up, because, you know, as I said, you know, these tools are worked by the teams on the ground. So, you know, you can't create them unless sales are involved. You know, the teams that are using them, it's the reps that are going out, that talking to customers. They're the ones that really understand your customers, you know, the challenges, so they can bring this valuable information back. But then, of course, you know, marketing has the resources, it has the collateral, the content that can be used. So, you know, they both really have to work together. And, you know, we insist on it when we work on a project, we bring them together. It's a no-go unless we get buy-in from all teams. It's not going to work otherwise.
And Jeremie, do you? Sorry, Dan, you carry on.
No, I was just going to add that it's also, you know, a lot of the sales teams often use you know, various different ways of working that essentially can get brought into Showpad. For example, sales team onboarding, you know, sharing best practice, training, those kind of elements that are, you know, kind of sit outside of marketing in some aspects. You know, they're very sales driven items that are almost internal team related things. But those are the kind of things as well that we've brought into Showpad to you know, really make it a focus tool for them.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, hopefully that's answered that question. It's very thorough. So in terms of return on investment, how long would you normally look to experience to see a return on investment on your tool implementation?
Is that for me?
Aurélien, I don't know if that's something that you could.
Yeah, I guess it's I mean, the easy and a hard question to answer, because there's two aspects to it, and Dan, you can back me up on that if you want to. There is a qualitative component to it, and this is the quality ROI is something that doesn't have to be put on the side, because what we see with Showpad specifically, or sales enablement platform, is because you change the way they work, and you make their life way easier, as I was mentioning earlier. From day one, they will see the benefit and the ROI of it. So they will see how long, like that, this time they spend finding content, preparing for content for meetings will drop straight away. To put a number behind it, it requires the company that is using such a platform to actually have an eye on it. So like they will work in a collaboration with our customer success team and say, okay, guys, this is my objective, whether it's like reducing the time spent finding content, reducing the sales cycle, and then we work backwards to this. So to your point, it can, depending for companies telling us, okay, we want to reduce the sale for long sales cycle. We want to reduce the sales cycle from 18 to 12 months. Well, it's not going to take, it's going to take like probably a year before the start of like analyzing like how it goes. But if it's like, I want to reduce the time they spend finding content, it can take up to 3 months, because you will have all the data on a daily basis of how they work with the platform.
Yeah, you know, sales speed is something that we talk about, and you can measure you know, very in detail. I mean, there are two ways to kind of look at it. You know, in a past role where I've used Showpad in conjunction with Salesforce, for example, I mean, you can see it pound notes. You know, it enables you to track from the viewing of a brochure through to a sale, through to actually what was invoiced. So you can see it in pound notes form. Where you don't have an integration with a CRM system, you still are able to see the benefits in terms of, as Aurélien said, sales speed. So from the time that from the time of that first kind of contact with the customer, we see significant time reductions from that first contact through to that first sale or that first specification. And in even simpler terms, the time it takes for our customer services to respond to an inquiry for something that's marketing related, like a data sheet or an image of a project, that time is reduced from maybe a couple of hours to 2 minutes. So in terms of customer satisfaction, it's night and day.
Does anybody else have anything to add to that? That was a really good overview. So we've had another question about timing, really. So we're obviously in the middle of a pandemic at the moment. I don't know if you want to answer this one, Jeremie. Is this the right time to think about digitally transforming your business, or is it better to be more mindful about the timing?
I think it's a very sensible question. Indeed, we are all experiencing a very special year that started almost at this time last year. I would say that last year we have been a bit in the surprise of the crisis. So everybody had to go back in the trenches trying to manage the business with this change happening. What we definitely saw by the end of the year is that some forces that we discussed about have not only stood there, but have become even more evident that these are the forces that will remain into changing the industry, both sustainability as well as industrialization and offsite and all that growing. So those forces are not going. However, today, the interesting thing is that we are not yet at the end of this crisis. However, there is almost like a deadline. Everybody should get inoculated by summer, hopefully, with all reserves that I take here. And at this moment, we have that deadline. So the crisis is not over, but we are not anymore in that surprise element. And we are still somehow, as Daniel was saying, at home, and therefore not spending that much time traveling or multiple engagements that we could have in normal times. So I do think that combination of these two factors, one, that the industry is anyways continuing change on those lines, and the second is that we almost have this small bubble between now and the middle of the year. I definitely personally think it's a very good timing to actually give some thoughts to sit back a bit and define that strategy of the future, which we often find quite difficult to do in parallel to doing the day-to-day all the time. So I almost see the Q2 of this year as a fantastic time to actually work on those things, or at least to initiate those things. So that's my view I would like to share.
And I think if I could just add to that, I don't have sort of the data to hand, but what keeps a business alive are its customers. And your buyers and your customers have changed, and they want to work with these new platforms. They like remote meetings. McKinsey did a big study in December, and 80% of a B2B's buyers actually prefer remote meetings and less one-to-one contact. Now, these are the people that are buying your services and your products. They want to work this way. So, ultimately, you don't have a choice. I think companies are just going to have to move with the times. One can't say, oh, we'll wait, or, is this the fad, or, the option isn't there. The people that are buying your products and services, they want to do that in new ways, and you have to accommodate that.
That's fantastic. That's a very good way to be wrapping up the webinar, I